It's now time on Doctor Who Review to review the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith. Only one thing for it. This is the first time I've tried fish custard. Not bad. Cue the titles. Hello, Whovians, and welcome back to my latest Doctor Who review. Woohoo! I'm back! After a long hiatus from my Doctor Who reviews, and I needed it, believe me, I am back to review the 11th Hour, starring Matt Smith in his debut as the 11th Doctor. The story was written by Stephen Moffat and aired in 2010, and it was also the beginning of Series 5 of the new series. So, after David Tennant announced he was going to leave the role in 2008, Series 5 was delayed till 2010, and they decided to do a set of 4 specials in 2009, which they did. And David Tennant left in the end of time. But yeah, Matt Smith makes his first appearance as the Doctor here, and this was a very interesting time for the show because David Tennant was so beloved and he was so popular among the fans. His exit was a real blow amongst the majority of fans. So Matt Smith really had a tough act to follow with David Tennant. And obviously the show at this point, I think, would see quite a few changes in regards to the way it looks, the way it feels, the way the stories are written. But we'll go over that as I review each of the stories. But specifically for the 11th Hour, let's just focus on the introduction of Matt Smith and how this all fares. So, the plot of the 11th Hour is as follows. After a literally explosive regeneration, the brand new 11th Doctor survives a crash landing to Earth. However, he has little time to recover. With a mysterious crack in a little girl's wall and a missing alien prisoner, the Doctor is in for an adventure. However, with the TARDIS damaged and the sonic screwdriver destroyed, can the Doctor capture the rogue alien before its jailers burn the Earth to a crisp? Okay, the 11th Hour. Well, this is going to be the first story of many to be helmed by the new showrunner, Stephen Moffat. Okay, I'm only joking. So actually, the batteries don't work in this damn thing. As for the 11th Hour, I have to say, I enjoyed this story. It was good. I don't think it was as good as I remembered it to be. When I first saw it, I actually really did enjoy it. When I first watched it, I was nervous because I wasn't sure. I mean, David Tennant is my favourite Doctor, and, you know, after seeing Matt Smith's first scene in The End of Time, I wasn't too convinced at that point if he was going to be the right guy for the role. And certainly watching the 11th Hour, Matt Smith definitely has the potential to be really good in this role. I wouldn't say that this is his best performance as the Doctor. I still think he needs time to grow into the role. I think he gives a pretty good first performance overall. He's very confident, but there are moments of his performance where it does feel like he is trying to emulate David Tennant. I don't know whether that was a conscious decision by the director because the Doctor had just regenerated, or whether that was just Matt Smith making some acting choices and experimenting with the role. But I think Matt Smith is pretty good here, and I do think he will get better as the Doctor as the stories go on. But this isn't his best performance by any stretch, but decent enough, I would say. I actually really like Karen Gillan as Amy Pond as well, or Amelia Pond, whichever name you choose to give her. Like I said, the episode isn't perfect, and one of the issues I have with the 11th Hour are some of the sexual references. They just seem to be really inappropriate or out of place. Like the idea of Amy being a kissogram. That's not even a job, really. I mean, that's just another way of saying she, well, stripper, basically. Going to parties and kissing people. Yeah, I see what you're doing there, Stephen. Like, I mean, it's kind of amusing when she's got the doctor tied up, well, handcuffed to the radiator in her house, and she's doing this English accent, and she's pretending that she's not the same person that he once knew as a little girl. It's just very jarring because we meet Amy as a little girl, and she's actually quite sweet, and she's fantastical. She's into the idea of, you know, fairy tales, and, you know, she believes the doctor is this magical, you know, guy who's just entered her life. And then we go from that to her being a fucking, basically a stripper, a kissogram. That's a watered down word for it. Also, there are other sexual references in here, like when the doctor goes into Jeff's room and he looks at his computer and he says, "Get a girlfriend, Jeff." And then he also says, "Delete your internet history." I mean, okay, I'll let you have that, but going forward, can we cut down on those references, please? The Doctor Who is a family show. It doesn't really need to. It doesn't need to have those references in there. And also, this is when the Doctor starts to call the TARDIS sexy. Yeah, take that how you will. One of my other criticisms of the story would have to probably be the villain, like Prisoner Zero. I'd say Prisoner Zero is an okay villain, but the villain isn't developed a huge amount. It's like this kind of shape-shifting, kind of, I don't know, lizard, snake kind of creature. Like, the CGI is perfectly fine, and I think the idea of it sort of having a psychic link with those coma patients to work off that, I mean, that's kind of a clever idea. But aside that, the villain's not developed very much. Like, why is the prisoner loose? What has the prisoner done? What is the prisoner's goal to achieve? The only thing that confuses me is the fact that, okay, Prisoner Zero is the villain, but it's the Atraxi who actually want to burn the Earth to a crisp. Why? Why do they want to burn the Earth? Who are the real villains of this story? It just seemed a bit conflicting. I don't think that was made very clear in the script. I also have to say that one of my other criticisms of the story is that it's too long. I think it's nearly an hour and 10 minutes, and I think it does take its time to get going, and there doesn't seem to be much of a story. I think it's a good character piece in that it sets up, it introduces Matt Smith as the Doctor quite well, and also Amy and Rory as well as obviously companions, although Rory won't become a companion until much later. And the 11th Hour is fun. Like, it's a fun ride. I can watch it and enjoy it, and it's a perfectly easy story to follow, aside the whole villains thing. That kind of gets a bit muddled. But generally speaking, this is one of the least convoluted Moffat stories, which is good. Like, Arthur Darvill as Rory Williams does do a good job. His role is quite minor in this story, but his introduction is kind of good, and he's quite funny. I quite like Arthur Darvill. His sarcasm and his humour really works with the Doctor and Amy. Probably the best moment of this story would have to be when the Doctor actually changes his clothes, because for most of this story, Matt Smith is wearing David Tennant's clothes, which are all raggedy and kind of ripped and torn. But there's a powerful moment when the Doctor is facing the Atraxi, and they're scanning him, and they see holograms of what the Doctor's life, like fragments of the Doctor's life and what he's seen and the aliens he's encountered. And there were some really nice references to previous Doctor Who stories. But also, we got to see holograms of the first 10 Doctors, which was great. That was a nice reference. And then once David Tennant's one disappeared, Matt Smith steps forward and he says, "Hello, I'm the Doctor." That was epic. That was probably the most epic moment of the whole story. Some of the humour's quite good. I do like the scene when the Doctor is trying all the food and he's rejecting most of it, and he ends up eating fish fingers and custard. Yeah, a bit of a weird combination, but it's Doctor Who, and he is an alien, so it makes sense. I also like the opening to the 11th Hour. I like the way that it opens with the TARDIS crashing. That's a pretty good, excellent opening. And the fact that we're seeing the old TARDIS console completely destroyed now, and also the old Sonic is really not working. The Doctor's trying his hardest to get it to work, and then it ends up, you know, blowing up. And when we finally get to see the new TARDIS and the new Sonic at the end, it's pretty good. I don't think it's my favourite interior of the TARDIS, but I do like it, and it's kind of cool and whiz own. There's a lot of quirky added things on there, like some taps which are quite good. The screen is a bit different, but it seems to be a bit more spacious than the previous TARDIS, which David Tennant and Christopher Eccleston had. And the new Sonic, which is actually this bad boy, it's a bit chunkier, it's a bit thicker. If you press the button, then this thing goes up. I mean, sadly, my one is just the toy version. The batteries need changing, but yeah, and it's got a green tip instead this time. So yeah, they've really remodeled the Sonic quite well. I really like this one. It's a good Sonic. It's not the best Sonic, but it works for Matt Smith. And as for Smith's costume, I think it works quite well. He wears the sort of red bow tie, the red shirt, the sort of black trousers, and the sort of kind of greeny blazer. I don't know if it's very, very sort of like olive green, I guess. He will wear another costume in his third series as the Doctor, but I quite like his costume here. It's pretty good, and it's basic, but it's not the best Doctor costume ever, but it's a look that actually suits him quite well. Because there's elements of old-fashioned, but it's also contemporary elements. Like, I think the trousers he wears are actually, like, I think they're black jeans. Well, they're very smart black trousers and whatnot. So, and because Matt Smith has quite a lot of quirks to his Doctor, so I think it suits him rather well. Like I said, Karen Gillan's very good in the role, and I think with Amy's quite good as a companion. Again, it's just the writing that kind of affects her for me. Like the fact when the Doctor's changing his clothes and Rory says, "You're not going to turn your back," and she's like, "No." Considering the fact that she was going to get married the next day to Rory, I find that a bit weird. The fact that Amy would be leering at the Doctor like that. So again, it's just these weird, sort of not uncomfortable, but sort of just out of place sexual references. And well, there's going to be more that come in the Moffat era, so this isn't the only one, sadly. Also, the music by Murray Gold is really good. I like the soundtrack very much, and obviously the classic I Am the Doctor theme is amazing, and it really suits Matt Smith's Doctor very well, and it works for that epic moment when, like I said, he reveals himself in his new costume and says, "Hello, I'm the Doctor." But the other incidental music is very good. As for the titles, they're okay. I mean, the new theme is not great. It's all right. Like it's a come down after the previous theme from Russell's era, but it's all right. It'll do. But I would have kind of liked something a bit more with a bit more energy. I mean, they try and make it sound more epic with the choral parts with the da 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 dun 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 dun. But other than that, it's kind of a bit, you know, it's meh. It's all right. And the title cards, like the names of the actors, like the really chunky font. It's a bit jarring at first when you first see it, but gradually get used to it after a while. I mean, the title sequence is okay. Like, it's fine. The TARDIS is just flying around and there's lightning everywhere. And, I mean, they had to change it, of course, because, you know, new Doctor, new titles. I mean, they didn't change it for David Tennant, but I guess because, you know, there's a new showrunner. He wanted to add his own ideas. I mean, the 11th Hour is a good introduction. It's not amazing. I like it enough. I think it's pretty good. The story's quite thin. And the villains, like whoever the real villains are, is kind of unclear, but it does have pacing problems. It does have a couple of other problems like the sexual references, but it is entertaining. It's a fun story, and I did enjoy the banter between the Doctor, Amy, and Rory, and Matt Smith gets off to a pretty decent start as the 11th Doctor. So, I'm going to score the 11th Hour an 8 out of 10. It's not his best story, it's not perfect, but it'll do as a good introduction. I feel like the story thinks it's trying to be more epic than it is, but I don't know. It could have been... there are things about it I would have done differently, but, you know, I wasn't the showrunner at the time. Next time on Doctor Who Review, I am going to be reviewing The Beast Below. So, until then, I'm MrTardiws 11. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye for now.